I want to talk to Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, former NATO commander and strategic forecaster. He's also the Reform UK candidate for the Hampshire and the Solent mayoral election, which is expected in May 2026 if Labour don't postpone it. Chris, you're very welcome to the programme. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. Labour have postponed it, of course. They've postponed the election till 2028.
Sorry, I totally missed that. I didn't know that about Hampshire and the Solent. So you're going to be the candidate for another couple of years?
Yep, it's going to be a marathon rather than a sprint this time. It's a great shame we're not going ahead in May, because people want to vote in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. They actually want to have their say, and we're being denied it, unfortunately.
So what do you think about what Zia Youssef has been saying of your party? He's been talking about a potential pact with the Conservatives.
Well, I haven't spoken to Zia about that, and I think it's only speculation, to tell you the truth. Reform are very strong at the moment. They're certainly very strong in my part of the world, and I think those are things that.
I mean, he said yesterday that his party would do the patriotic thing if faced with the prospect of a government comprising Labour, the Greens, and the Liberal Democrats. I mean, surely it's speculation, but he didn't rule it out.
Well, right now, I mean, within the party, we think we can win an outright majority in a general election, and all the trajectories suggest that's the case. I mean, we're back to the old issue where when the facts change, one's opinion changes. The fact of life is to get rid of this current Labour government and to get rid of any sort of thing that is destructive for the interests of the British people, then everything's on the table. Of course it is. I think people have to be pragmatic about it.
Do you fear the emergence of Restore Britain?
Well, personally, no, I don't. I mean, my own view is that everybody is an ally in getting this this Labour government out of power. It's destroying the very fabric of our lives every day. Yeah, we can't say that people are a threat. Not at that level, no.
Well, let's talk about the speech of Marco Rubio over the weekend. This was pretty astonishing and quite heartwarming stuff, actually. It was a really, really good speech that he made to the Munich Security Conference. This is Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, the Foreign Secretary, essentially, of the Americans, talking about the United Nations.
The United Nations still has tremendous potential to be a tool for good in the world. But we cannot ignore that today, on the most pressing matters before us, it has no answers and has played virtually no role. It could not solve the war in Gaza. Instead, it was American leadership that freed captives from barbarians and brought about a fragile truce. It has not solved the war in Ukraine. It took American leadership in partnership with many of the countries here today just to bring the two sides to the table in search of a still elusive peace.
I just want to talk about the idea of the West's managed decline as well. Another really interesting extract of this speech from Marco Rubio. Let's play that.
For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline. We do not seek to separate, but to revitalize an old friendship and renew the greatest civilization in human history. What we want is a reinvigorated alliance that recognizes that what has ailed our societies is not just a set of bad policies, but a malaise of hopelessness and complacency. An alliance is the alliance that we want is one that is not paralyzed into inaction by fear. Fear of climate change, fear of war, fear of technology. Instead, we want an alliance that boldly races into the future.
An alliance that boldly races into the future. I am pretty sure that an awful lot of our viewers and listeners, Chris, would agree with me that the UK and other European governments are destroying what we hold dear as the pillars of Western civilization. We built America, and now America is begging us not to destroy what we're about. I just wonder if you agree with that sentiment and what your thoughts are on what Rubio has said, Chris.
Yeah, I think what we've got to understand is there is a new dynamic in the world today. In the past, we've been used to sort of Cold War. We've been used to block-on-block sort of confrontation that we've had between the free world and the autocratic Eurasian states. What we seem to have moved into now is a civilizational issue. We know that China's pushing its civilization at the moment, its civilizational roots. We know that Russia is, in terms of what it used to be. America is saying we are the custodians of that Western tradition. Everybody I talk to in the States is talking about why has Europe betrayed itself. One interesting comparison I heard recently this week is that if you compare it to the Roman Empire in the West is utterly decaying. And of course, it fell in 410. But of course, the tradition of Roman leadership was carried on in Byzantium, in Constantinople afterwards. And the Americans are seeing themselves in that role at the moment. And everywhere you look right now, the old issues of left and right, of block-on-block confrontation is disappearing. And what you're seeing is civilizations emerging now as the fault lines between the way the world is developing. If you look at the Iranian regime right now, you're seeing a lot of Persian statues and imagery starting to appear on the streets of Isfahan and Tehran. And so what we're seeing, I think, is a revival of that idea. And what the Americans are tapping into is very much that they are the new guardians of Western civilization. And they're saying to old Europe, look, we'd like to be partners with you, but we're going to go it alone if you don't want to follow us. And if you're going to be beset by all these international treaties that you like, if you're going to continue looking at the climate crisis, all these other things that are distracting us from actually restoring and rebuilding our civilization, then you're on your own. It's as simple as that.
He also talked about leadership and retrieving and restoring values and key values for the West and statesmanship. Is there a statesman or stateswoman who can actually lead us? Someone with a big vision, not just sort of limited, awkward, small-minded Starmer types. And people will question that both with America, will question it here as well. I wonder if I can ask you, Chris, as well, about what happened outside the hall, because we had 250,000 people in Munich supporting the Iranian people, not the Iranian regime, which is repressive, horrible, dreadful human rights abuses, but 250,000 people in Munich alone, to say nothing of many, many other cities around the world, including here in London, supporting the Iranian people. I think that's great. I think that is absolutely to be supported. And I just wonder if you think the people inside the hall were actually listening to that, and was the media listening as well? I didn't see a single word on that on, for example, the BBC until last night.
There's no doubt that Iran is in crisis right now. It's obviously suffered external attack by Israel and by the United States. There's internal issues going on between the Ministry of Intelligence and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They've had this recent insurgency around the country. But I think, Peter, what we have to understand in relation to totalitarian regimes like this, and it was the same with Japan and, of course, Germany at the end of the Second World War. Unless you knock over a heavily repressive regime, which has huge instruments of repression, there's no doubt about it, unless you really knock them over, the people are never going to be able to rise up and get rid of that regime. It's not a culture that is like, if you like, the colour revolutions in Eastern Europe and things like that. And there is no restraining influence at all on the regime in the amount of force and repression it can put on its people. And quite a lot of those instruments of repression have a vested interest, not only in the economy, but also in their own survival. If you consider the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, for example, controls 1/3 of the Iranian economy, including quite a lot of the offshore oil and gas. They're in a very heavy repressive sort of environment there. And without that external pressure, there is absolutely no chance. And by pressure, I mean military pressure. There is no chance that the people will be able to rise up against that regime.
Rubio, I think, is a statesman. I agree with him on an awful lot of things, and I think he never shies away from his opinions, and I agree with him almost totally on the Middle East. I wonder if we could talk about another person who spoke to the Munich Security Conference, Keir Starmer. And on Saturday, he essentially said that if you go to the left and vote Green, or you go to the right and vote Reform UK, your party, Chris, that risks war. I wonder what you think about that.
Oh, it's absolute tosh, Peter. I mean, for heaven's sake, I'd like to see the linkages in political military terms. Look, I'm in Reform. I've spent my life, over 45 years, combating Russia and the former Soviet Union. I've been up in the Barents Sea in the freezing cold, Okay, if I thought there was any chance that reform would lead to helping Russia in any way, I wouldn't be in the party. It's as simple as that. And these constant slurs are just designed to deflect away from all these crises.
It's not a slur, though, to say that the leader in Wales, Nathan Gill, is now serving time for being influenced by Russia and asking questions on behalf of Russia. Is it, though?
Yeah, Peter, look, he's one person who was bowled out very easily. He's been disowned by reform. I can tell you, during the Falkland Islands, a Labour MP got up and betrayed us all by saying we were reading the Argentinian codes. He was made a peer by Tony Blair. So, you know, we can't have Labour throwing this out all the time about Nathan Gill, who's a minor personality. We have a peer in the House of Lords right now who betrayed me and my comrades in the Falklands. So we can't have the Labour Party talking about this.
And you're clear that Nigel Farage is totally anti-Russia. You're absolutely clear about that, because that's the mud that's being thrown at him.
Yeah, it's constantly being thrown at people in reform. We abhor Russia. We hate the regime, and everybody I speak to in reform and everybody around the country hates what's happening in Ukraine, and we are utterly opposed to what is happening in Russia.
Chris, thank you. Much appreciated. Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, former NATO commander and strategic forecaster. He's also the Reform UK candidate for the Hampshire and the Solent mayoral election, which I've now learned is one of those postponed ones that is going to happen in 2028.